सर्वचराचरस्थं त्वामेव शम्भुं शरणं प्रपद्ये परं परस्थं गहनादनादिम् एकं निविष्टं बहुधा गुहासु सर्वालयं सर्वचराचरस्थं त्वामेव शम्भुं शरणं प्रपद्ये
Asmatrupa Samavishta.
अस्मद्रूपसमाविष्टः स्वात्मनात्मनिवारणे शिवः करोतु निजया नमः शक्त्यात्मने अस्मद्रूपसमाविष्टः स्वात्मनात्मनिवारणे शिवः करोतु निजया नमः शक्त्यात्मने
Agata Samshaya Modi.
Agatha Sanshayam Bodhi first. Agatha Sanshayam Bodhi Samuttarana-tarini Vande Vichitrarthapadam Chitram Tam Guru Bharati Agadha Sanshayam Bodhi Samuttarana-tarini Vande Vichitrarthapadam Chitram Tam Guru Bharati.
Now, the new one we learn Vishranti. Vishranti on the next page. Nahi? Yesterday we had the Sutra Icha Shakti Uma Kumari. So the whole theme of the Devi and of the Shakti came, and this is one beautiful verse about the Supreme Devi. Vishanti, this there, no?
Vishranti Vishranti Paramadevi Kalopati Vivarjita Savikalpa Vikalpana Sarvasam Samvidalaya.
Vishranti, rest, repose. The Supreme Goddess is repose. And we have seen yesterday many of those practices where you have to focus your awareness on the gap between two thoughts, between two breaths, etc. And that is Vishranti. So in that Vishranti, in that pause, in that moment of deep rest, you experience that goddess, Paramadevi, because she is pure consciousness. Kalopadi Vivarjita, she is free from all this time, space, all these adjuncts which we have, all these limitations. But still, she is the abode of consciousness of all states, whether with thoughts or without thoughts. So it's also not that savikalpa avikalpanam sarvasam samvidalaya. She is the basis, she is the abode of consciousness which underlies both thoughts and thought-free state. So that's why she is that universal, pure, as we say, this white background behind all our activities, our thoughts, our icha, etc. Yesterday we had some very important sutras, and I am now very much tempted to take up, we will continue with some of the sutras in the first section, but I am tempted to come more generally to the topic of meditation or samadhi, etc., which has come up again and again. Now, it is very significant which are the words used for awareness, concentration, meditation, etc. In the previous sutra, this Hridaya Chitta Sankhatat, Trishya Swapada Darshanam, that act, or what happens in that union of the mind with the heart. It is described as sankhata. It is an intimate union. So chitta, if you think of the first Yoga Sutra, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, here there's no question of Nirodha, there's no suppression, there's no stoppage, there's union. And that's why it is Tantra. You don't exclude anything, but you have to unite it, you have to bring it together, you have to melt it together. So Sankhata is also an erotic term. It's that complete union of the mind with the heart. And then we have seen what a wonderful definition of the heart. It is that basis of the whole Vishva Pratishta Sthanatvat Chitpakasho Hridayam. It is that light of consciousness because it is the locus of the basis of the whole universe. So a very, very unique but very typical of this tradition, the definition of the heart. So here the word for the process which the meditator is going through is sankhata, union, intimate union. And before we had several times what was mostly translated by awareness, Santana. Santana, and if you look in Jaidev Singh's glossary, he rightly explains it as joining, union of the individual consciousness with the universal consciousness through fixed intensive awareness or one-pointedness. That is Santana. And then in an extended form in many of the texts you'll find Anusandhana. Anu is added. Anusandhana is a process of contemplation. Santana, somehow it is only that awareness, and Anusandhana is more a prolonged process of meditation. So these terms are unique, and they have also their implications in that emphasis on awareness. And that awareness, again, it can only be understood on the basis of what we understand by consciousness, what we understand by Shakti, by energy, because the awareness is always focused on that energy and on that pure consciousness, which was the very first sutra. So these are some very significant words. Of course, samadhi is common. Samadhi is common to all Indian spiritualities. And but here, that emphasis on uniting, Santana, uniting and not suppressing. So focusing means also uniting in your consciousness, which is dispersed, bringing it into one without suppressing anything, but by merging it. So now I am tempted, definitely we cannot read all the sutras, and we will try to complete the first section, but I am tempted to make a jump and to come to one sutra which is very important for our practice. You come to 3:16 on page 163. It was already mentioned, and it will come at the end of the first section. The last sutra will also contain that word Hrada, Maha-Hrada, the great lake. We already said that in Kashmir you have that, from that environment you have these great lakes, you don't have the ocean, but these lakes are also an image, you know. Even that whole theory of reflection, you know, if you have seen how the mountains are reflected in the Dal Lake, you know, this Pratibimba, Pratibimba, you can immediately understand. So that lake is a metaphor here, metaphor for that energy, for that pure consciousness. So here we are not concerned about the context. I mean, everything is, of course, always said about the yogi. Of course, the first section is Shambhavopaya, and the last section, according to Kshemarāja, is Anavopaya. But even there, he goes to the highest level, even in the Anavopaya, because ultimately every upaya is only a stage, is a movement. There is a dynamism. It's not a static box that this is the box of Anavopaya, but it is a movement, it is a process, and you progress from there. If you do it well, then you automatically ascend to Shaktopaya and to Shambhava. Now this is a very powerful sutra. Asanastha sukham hrade nimajjate. Being established in the asana. Now he will say what is asana. he emerges or he dives blissfully, sukham, or easily in that lake. So there's nothing more said about that lake. Asanasta sukham hade nimajjate. So yesterday we had also the opposite, that unmajjate, now something emerges, and nimajjate, it gets immersed, it dives, it merges in that lake. So what happens in your samadhi, in your meditation, is precisely this. And again, it is not forcefully, you know the word hatha yoga, hathat, that is very something powerful and with a lot of willpower also. But here, no, sukham. Easily and peacefully emerge in that lake. And then every word is explained. He dives, the Swamiji. Now we will take Swamiji's interpretation because it's so beautiful. So, what is? Yeah? In Swami Lakshmanchu's book 169, page 169. In Jaidev Singh's book is page 163. So first he explains what is asana. Asyate nityam aikatmyena stiyate asmin iti asanam. See, the seat or the posture is that where he is established, he is permanently established in unity, aikyam. Nityam aikatmyena, in union. That in which he is established, that is asana. And this asana is described as param shaktam balam. It is the supreme power of divine energy. Now, we will come back to the Sanskrit, but Swamiji is so beautiful here. The real posture is the supreme energy of awareness. Actually, the postures explained in the Yoga Darshana are not really asanas at all. The real posture is the supreme energy of awareness. You are seated in that posture when you hold and possess the supreme energy of awareness. Then in each and every act of your life, you are aware, you are seated in that posture. That is the real asana. So param shaktam balam. That is, asana is the power of the supreme energy. And he who yastatra tishtati, who is established there, parichita parapara dhyana dharana adi sarva kriya prayaso nityam antarmukhataya tad eva param rishati ya. So he sits there means leaving all kinds of higher and lower practices involving effort like meditation, concentration, etc. He is always mindful of that power in an introverted way, antamukhataya. Paramrishati is awareness. Again, paramarsha is also another word for awareness. Sasukham anayasataya. Sukham means effortlessly. Anayasa, effortlessly. Because precisely Hatha Yoga is characterized by effort. You have to do some effort. But here, effortlessly, anayasa. Hrade, in the lake. So what is that lake? Vishva pravaha prasara hetau svacheda chalata adi yogini paramrita samudre nimachate. So he emerges in that great ocean. Here he calls it Samudra. Such a one is with ease steeped by drowning all impressions of the limitation of the body, etc., in the most exquisite limpid ocean of immortality. Now let us see what. Paramrita Samudre, in that ocean of supreme nectar. Nectar is always joyful, and of course it is ambrosia, which is at the same time immortality. So in Swamiji's, the yogi who, leaving aside the effort of asana, pranayama, dhyana and dharana, simply remains in that posture with nothing left to do, aware of what he actually is. This is why the author has used the word sukham in the sutra, because effortlessly means that without exerting any effort in respect to breathing or yogic exercises, contemplation or meditation, he remains seated in that posture. So in an internal, not external way, he perceives the reality of his embodiment of awareness, and without any effort, finally immerses himself in the ocean from which the universe rises and expands. He dives and enters for good in that ocean, which is filled with real nectar. This is absolutely. Nimachate, he emerges. Dehadi sankocha samskara bodhanena abodhane tanmayi bhavati. Nimachati means merging, means that he becomes one. Again, it's the uniting which is stressed and not the leaving aside. But without dehadi samskara, sankocha, without the limitations of the identification with the body, prana, the mind, and shunya, as we had it yesterday, these 4 elements of identification of the individual. What does diving mean? In diving into the ocean of nectar, this is the other Swamiji's translation of the same text. In diving into the ocean of nectar, he lets the impressions of the body, of the breath, of the 8 constituents, of the void sink into that ocean and becomes one with that nectar. This is the real way of diving. So now just think that what you're doing in samadhi is, and that image of diving, it is a great help, If you have a metaphor, when you start with your meditation, it's a great help. Because just to dive in that ocean and with that fearlessness, this is the ocean of nectar. And this diving means leaving aside all the limitations and becoming one with that nectar and one with that divine power, Shaktam Balam. And then he quotes the Netra Tantra, which, as I said yesterday, that contains 3 wonderful chapters on yoga: Stula, Sukshma, and Para. The gross or the physical, the subtle yoga, and the supreme yoga. And there are 3 chapters in the Netra Tantra which are wonderful. So he quotes here, and you can see that there's nothing to hold on. So that kind of diving, we have nothing to hold on. If you jump into the ocean or into the lake without any support, without any lakri or any swimming, you have no support. And that is why you have nothing to hold on. So that's what the Netra Tantra says, na urdhvantyanam prayunchita, na adastan, na matyata, and so on. So we can read it. Neither meditate on something above, nor on the middle, nor on something down below, neither in front, nor at the back, nor at both sides, neither on something within the body, nor should one meditate on something outside. Neither one should fix one's gaze on the sky, nor on something down below. Neither one should close one's eyes, nor should one keep the eyes open without blinking. Neither one should meditate on something as a support, nor on a negation of a support. This niralamba, by the way, this is a very important term, in the Vijnana Bhairava is called niradhara. Those who have done Vijnana Bhairava remember. Niradhara, that supportlessness. And you practice it first with some kind of imagination, like you're sitting and you imagine that there's nothing below, that you're sitting on nothingness, on emptiness. And then you train yourself for that state of niralamba, supportlessness, which we have seen in this Baba Kinarams, where niralamba is very important. Unless you reach that state of supportlessness, you're always bound to some support, some imagination or some vikalpa, something to hold on. But that is the higher stage where you have to leave all supports. Okay, we start with meditating on the akasha and so on and so many things. But then ultimately you have to leave all that. Niralamba or niradhara. Nor on a support over and over again, nor on the senses, nor beings, nor on sense perceptions like sound, touch, taste, etc. Thus, leaving aside every support established in samadhi, one should only abide identified with the highest. So this is I'm just reading only the last bit in Sanskrit. Na chakshur milanam na kinchit drishti-bandhanam avalambam niralambam salambam naiva bhavayet. So negating everything. Na indriyani na bhutani shabdasparsha rasadaya evam tyaktva samadhista kevalam tanmayi bhavet. It's so brief. See, leaving all that established in samadhi, only merging or united with that, tanmayi bhavet, tanmaya, in union with that. Sounds very Upanishadic, tat, with that. No name. Sa avastha parama prokta, and this state is said to be the highest. Shivasya Paramatmana, the state of Shiva, the Supreme Self. Nirabhasam padam tattu tatprapya vinivartate. That has been said to be the highest state of Shiva, that verily is the seat of the highest self, which is without any external appearance. If one attains this state, he does not return anymore. That is Jivan Mukti, liberated. And Swamiji This state, which is the real nature of Shiva, is not revealed. This state is the revealer. So, because everything is negated, so you cannot project anything. You cannot objectify. And this is the whole crux of this spirituality. The moment you objectify, you fix it on something. Even on an idea of Shiva, an idea of God, anything. But everything is denied. It's not the revealed, it is the revealer. So the aspirant must be active in an interior way, not in an external way. He must be active in being aware of himself. That is real activity. Real activity is not moving about here and there. The revealed is not the point to be sought, it is the revealer that is to be striven for. Now, you see, although here we are at the level of Anavobhaya, but this is actually the highest. It belongs to the same as we had in the first to Shambhavobhaya. And in a way, if you consider that word sukham, some people will say, oh, it's very difficult. How can one leave all these imaginations and thoughts, and how is it possible? But this sukham, that easily, very easily. So at the end of the of his fundamental text on the philosophy of recognition, Ishvara Prativijñākārika, Utpaladeva says, this is the new and easy way. It's an easy way because you don't have to do very complicated asanas and pranayama and this and that. And it is immediate recognition in the philosophical sense, and here immediate immersion. Just immerse yourself, and that lake is so blissful that you are not fearing to jump in it. It's not that you have to make of course, we said yesterday, Vira. The great yogi who is always again and again invoked is called Vira, is a hero. So spiritual hero who has the courage to dive in that lake. But still, it is easy, it is sukham. So that image of merging or diving in that lake, it can be just a moment, a starting point of your meditation. And what we do actually in bhavana, bhavana is a much more prolonged process, but still often it starts with one thought or one image, one metaphor like this. But it's just only a moment of entering, and then you forget about what has made you enter. Once you have entered, you have entered. See, when you are swimming or when you are diving in that lake, you are not thinking of the shore. So what the Buddha says that when you are crossing the river on a ferry, you don't carry that ferry on your shoulder because you have crossed over. So that we have to keep in mind this asana. What is the real asana? Of course, sitting in a stable posture is ideal, definitely. But the real asana is that spiritual state. So I just advise you to go through this again and again. It is very important for our experience. Then we come back to where we stopped yesterday. And again, these words for awareness, sandhana, it comes. The next sutra is 116 on page 61. So this continues from this, again, because these are very much related, Hridaya, Chitta, Sangatat, and what we have just now done. And the continuation of this is Shuddha Tattva Sandhanat Va Apashu Shakti. Shuddha Tattva, the pure element, pure reality, by sandhana, again by awareness on that pure reality, one attains apashu shakti, the power which is not bound, the unbound energy, apashu shakti. Or Jadif Singh says, by constant awareness of the pure principle, he becomes like one in whom the binding power existing in the limit itself is absent. It's okay. What is the Shuddha Tattva? Shuddham Tattvam Paramashivakyam. Shuddha Tattva means the Supreme Shiva, Paramashiva. Which is beyond, if you have the list of the 36 tattvas, it is not the Shiva Tattva, but beyond the Shiva Tattva. Although it is called Tattva here, but not in the technical sense of one of these elements. Paramashiva is beyond Shiva as a Tattva. Paramashiva, Parabhaiva, Parava, etc. Tatra yata vishvam anusandhate tanmayam eva etat iti. Again, the absolute principle. When in that, he becomes aware of the universe as that itself, that is as Shiva, then he becomes the Lord of the world. Tada avityamana pashyakya bandha shaktir yasya tadrik ayam tada shivavat vishvasya jagata patir bhavati. Again, it's a question of uniting, of becoming one with that tattva, with that pure principle, pure reality, which is the Shiva tattva, Shiva, Paramashiva. So we had yesterday, sorry, that aiming at that universal consciousness, that it came, the whole development went there to universalize your consciousness. And here, this is directly expressed, Vishvam Anusandhate. Here I said yes, Sandhana, Anusandhana. So it is one way of meditation, contemplation. So contemplating on this universe as your own self and as divine, Shiva, Paramashiva. And then leaving behind the limited bondage of being a pashu and the ignorance, avidyamana, Pashu Akya, Bandha Shaktir. Yeah, the power of bondage is left behind by that attaining that universal consciousness. And then he becomes Pati. So as we said, these three elements of Shaivism, of any Shaivism, Pati, Pashu and Pasha, and where the Pashu, the bound soul, becomes Pati. In the non-dualist system, of course. Pashu becomes Pati. And this is said in the Lakshmi Kaulanava Tantra. These tantras are also not less powerful than the commentators. Diksha sitau tu ye prokta pratyaya stobha purvaka samdhanasya te devi kalam narhati shodashim. O Goddess, all the religious disciplines together with joyful exclamations of praise which are prescribed for the success of initiation are not worth even the 16th part of that awareness which is centered on you, Devi. Again, awareness, yeah? It is not, that word is not invented by Kshemaraja Samdhana. It is the Tantra itself. Samdhana, Anusandhana, these are more important than dhyana. See, dhyana is very common. It's very usual. And it is at a lower level because dhyana presupposes an object. You have an object. So this awareness is infinitely more worth than all these rituals, even if they are very joyful and very colorful and all this, whatever belongs to this ritual of diksha, initiation, etc. And then comes again something for practice from the Vijnana Bhairava. Vijnana Bhairava was 63. Sarvam deham chinmayam hi jagatva paribhavayet yogapan nirvikalpena manasa paramodaya. If one contemplates simultaneously that one's entire body and the universe consists of nothing but consciousness, then the mind becomes free from thoughts and the supreme awakening occurs. It is one of these very high dharanas where it's a question of simultaneously, and that is not easy. You can do it with the body or with the universe, but simultaneously. Sarvam deham, the whole body. And see, va can mean either or and also. So of course, you can also take it in the sense of or. So either you meditate on the whole body as pervaded by consciousness or on the universe. But the ideal, a higher stage is both simultaneously. And this we had already in this sutra Trishyam Shariram, that if you consider that whole universe as your body, once you have overcome the limitations of being identified with the body, etc., then the whole universe becomes your body, and that is exactly what is meditated here when you do it simultaneously. So your body, the whole universe is your body, and it consists of nothing but consciousness, Chinmayam. But he says Yugapat simultaneously. He says simultaneously. And with a thought-free mind, nivikalpena manasa. Now the question is always, with any of these dharanas, is the thought-free state before that, or is it the result? Is the condition you have to be thought-free in order to do this meditation, or do you become thought-free by doing it? So I think there's a question of experience. Like he often says, then you go to a Sadguru and he will tell you what is first and what is second. But often they say, you ask your own experience. Suppose you have a very powerful, unexpected, sudden experience when you're outside somewhere in nature or something. And your thoughts just disappear. So that nirvikalpa is a result of the experience, not the condition. Because making the mind thought-free without any cause is not easy. So something which hits you suddenly, like that's why all these experiences with sudden, extreme emotions and so on, which make you thought-free in a moment without any effort. But so it is rather the result than the condition of such an experience, of such a meditation. Because here he said, paribhavayet. The bhavana, I said, one of the important terms for contemplation. Paribhavayet. Pari means always all round, complete. So that means the cosmic and the personal, the body and everything. Paribhavayet. All round. Here Swamiji says, Savam Deham Jagatva, your whole body from toe to head is this entire universe. You have to imagine that this is full of God consciousness. Chinmayam Paribhavayet, just imagine that this whole universe is filled with God consciousness from toe to head. You have to imagine and think this simultaneously. Think that your body and this universe are one. Now, he quotes the Spandakarika. Iti vayasya samvitti kridatvena akilam jagat sapashyan satatam yukto jivan mukto no samshaya. So definitely this experience, this state points to jivan mukti. He who knows thus and regards the whole world as a play of the divine, being ever united, is without doubt liberated while alive. Now, the next sutra, Idrikyana Rupasya Asya Yoginaha, of the yogi who has realized that the universe is only a form of Shiva, Vitarka Atmagyanam. Now, Vitarka is not to be understood as logic. Like Vijnana, Vitarka is not logic, but it is a different kind of awareness. But not just awareness, but also a kind of, there is a content, like this universal consciousness, which is then a kind of reflection, but more meditative than mental. It's not a rational reflection, because we are very much used from logic, vitarka, as a logic term, not at all. So he says, what is the content of this vitarka? Vishvatma Shiva eva asmi. Yeah, the content. It has a content. Like you concentrate on the sentence, I am Shiva of the nature of the whole universe. Vishvatma Shiva eva asmi. Of this yogi, the unwavering awareness that I am Shiva, the self of the universe, constitutes the knowledge of self. Iti yo vitarko vichara. Now vichara, we know, it is also, in Vedanta, it's also a practice, like Atma vichara, but it's not exactly the same. Because here it's a question of the universal consciousness. Etadeva asya atma jnanam. This is his knowledge, his self-experience. And then, again, he quotes the Vijnana Bhairava, where the divine is defined. And it is a kind of mantra or mantric meditation on Bhairava or Shiva. So it is verse 102. So those who know the Vijnana Bhairava will understand that most of the verses he quotes or dharanas he quotes are from the latter part, so it means the advanced stage, not from the beginning stage. They are not particular practices, but they are already a very high level of experience. Verse 102. No, this must be. Sarvajna, Sarvakarta. Is something wrong? Yes. 109. Sarvajna Sarvakarta cha vyapaka parameshvara sa eva aham shaiva dharma iti datyat bhavet Shiva. The Supreme Lord is omniscient, omnipotent, and all-pervading. Since I have the same characteristics of Shiva, I myself am He. By such a firm meditation, one becomes Shiva. So this is that a meditation which it is a kind of bhavana, which leads to divinization, to transforming you into the same characteristic, same power of Parameshvara, of the Supreme Lord. Shaiva Dharma, these are the characteristics of Shiva, Shaiva Dharma. And I have the same characteristics. So he gives this example exactly for vitarka, what is meant by vitarka in the sutra. So this kind of meditation is vitarka. So you identify yourself with a statement, I am Shiva, while you have the mantra Shivoham, of course it's a mantra. Soham, Shivoham, these are the most common mantras which you are using with your breath. It's not mentioned as such, but this is understood because the whole tradition is the Hamsa mantra, Soham, Shivoham. So this vitarka is the result of such a meditation or such a thought. And then again, ik word Spandakarika. It doesn't give the whole Sanskrit. The realization of oneself as Shiva is the acquisition of ambrosia. This is verily the veritable Caesar of the self. This constitutes the initiation of Nirvana Diksha, and this confers on oneself the realization of one's identity with Shiva. Ayam eva atmano graha. This is important because I think in the introductory lecture I said that these non-dualistic Shaivas, they find a way to substitute the ritual initiation, Diksha, by either an act of knowledge or transmission, direct transmission. So Nirvana Diksha, here it is not an external ritual, but it is the very realization or experience of oneness with Shiva. So this is a substitute for any ritual initiation. Atmano Grahanam. In this verse, the seizure of self means the knowledge of self. By this phrase, it is also intended to express the idea that oneself is non-different from Shiva, the self of the universe. Yat Vishvatmaka Shiva Abhinnatvam. This is just one phrase. So the whole theme of that universal consciousness continues, but Vitarka has a particular meaning that you establish it also by your thought or your concentration on a particular word, like I am Shiva, I am the universal being, and so on. Shivoham, Shivoham. That's Vitarka. And then, this kind of yogi, for this kind of yogi, the next sutra is again very beautiful. Lokananda Samadhi Sukham. The bliss of the trance of the universe, the bliss of universal bliss is the trance of samadhi. Universal bliss, Lokananda. It's not just when, as Swamiji said, you're not sitting in your meditation room and reciting a mantra and so on. But Lokananda, it's the whole universe, everything. Lokananda Samadhi Sukham. Well, Swamiji says very beautifully, the joy of his samadhi is bliss for the whole universe. Yesterday we were discussing about this bodhicitta. So the joy of his samadhi is bliss for the whole universe. So if that yogi is in perfect samadhi, it radiates that a joy, that bliss is radiating for the whole world. So this is much better than this. Yeah? I can't. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, you can connect it. Yes, definitely. The joy of his samadhi is bliss for the whole universe. This is Lokananda Samadhi Sukham. Then he says, what is loka? Lokayate iti loka vastukrama. The word loka has to be construed in two senses. That which is perceived, that is the multitude of objects, or lokayati iti cha loka, or he who perceives, that is the class of objects. We know very well that even in up to Hindi, log are the people, but the people, because so the same loka means the people also and means also the world, the object, the world of objects. So loka means both. And again, Vijnana Bhairava. And this is one of those very important dharanas which appear so easy, they appear so simple, but they are not at all simple. Grahya grahaka samvitti, samanya sarvadehinam. That is 106. Grahya grahaka samvitti samanya sarvadehinam yoginam tu visheshosti sambandhe savadhanata. Again, avadhana. The perception of object and subject is common to all embodied beings. But characteristic of yogis is that they are constantly aware of this relationship. So it's not that the yogis don't have a consciousness of subject and object, because they live in the world, so they have to deal with things and with subject-object. But they are in a constant state of awareness, and awareness, of course, anusandhana, as we said, is of unity consciousness. So not that split of subject and object. And this is that loka is where you have that subject-object dichotomy. The world and the people are the subject-object. But, and again here, savadhanata, avadhana. It's always a question of awareness. And awareness is such a subtle thing. It's not like dhyana or any of these other yogangas. But awareness is very subtle. And with that implication of union, uniting these opposites of subject and object. Sarvadehina means all the embodied beings, including animals. Of course, the animals also have that subject-object awareness, definitely. Otherwise, they will not get their food and their shelter and whatever. It is all embodied beings have that. But the yogis have that sense of awareness and of the unity. Now, there's a long commentary on this verse, which appears so simple, but it's not so simple, by Abhinavagupta in his Tantra Loka. But that at some point one has to go into that. Very detailed commentary on this. Here Swamiji says, according to such teachings found in the Vijnana Bhairava, when a yogi resides with full awareness in the state of subjectivity, with the full joy of experiencing his own nature, chamatkara, this is said to be the joy of his samadhi. And again the same, which we have just heard, is simultaneously meditating on the body and on the universe as filled with, is it the same or it is a similar one? Just a moment. Sarvam deham chinmayam he. No, it is different. It is 65 in the Vijnana Bhairava. They are similar but not the same. Sarvam jagat swadeham va svananda bhaitam smarit yugapat swamritena eva parananda mayopavet. The yogi should contemplate simultaneously on the whole world or his own body as filled with the bliss of the self. Then by his own blissful nectar he becomes united with the supreme bliss, parananda mayopavet. It's very similar to the other one, but still the starting point is a bit different. And so this is very much connected with the sutra, Lokananda Samadhi Sukha. And then at the end he gives another interpretation. This is at the end of the commentary, page 66 and 67. Moreover, the delight of knowership which the yogi experiences by continuous repose and delight within himself ends in making his delight manifest among those people who all carefully observe him in that state. This happens by the process of transmission of delight. This is quite in agreement with the quotation given from Chandragyana. Now, this beautiful expression, Ananda Sankramana Yuktya. We had this yesterday, that example, that poetic expression from Chandragyana, where, like the moon, delights the whole world by its rays, by its shining, and so on. So the great yogi also, by his blissful realization, delights the whole world. So, and here it is very clearly said, Ananda Sankramana Yuktya. That yukti is a transmission of that bliss. So if you're in the presence of somebody who is so blissfully filled with that experience, it is infectious. It's like an infectious disease. There is a fantastic a very traditional, funny example is given that when you come very close to a cobra is just in front of you, that poison will be transmitted to you. But this example is given for a great yogi when you are in his presence, that his radiance will infect you, will be transmitted. So this is Lokananda Samadhi Sukham. And with, I said, I think in the beginning, when we talked about the upayas, that this is anupaya, where you have by Sita Darshana, just by seeing a perfect being, you get this transmission, Sita Darshana, and you enter into that. If you are capable, you enter into that state of anupaya. And so this is really very easy, but you must find a siddha and to have his darshan and to participate in that bliss which radiates. So that's very beautiful because it's a matter of, so anybody can understand if you have been in the presence of any perfect realized soul, that transmission takes place. Because we are so much influenced, see when you are, like you are in a big crowd in the city, all the people who have their own different mentality, different problems, so they're all affecting you. And the contrary, if you're in the presence of a perfected, perfectly realized being, then you will be affected by that presence. So you just keep in mind a few sutras. It's not difficult to remember. Lokananda Samadhi Sukha. It is very easy and very wonderful. Ananda Sankramana. You have nothing to do. Only receive that transmission. Only receive that transmission. Now, because of lack of time, I would leave out the next two sutras because they are connected. Anyone who knows the Yoga Sutras, there is a whole section on siddhis. And the next two sutras have to do with siddhis, with powers, which arise out of this achievement of that universal consciousness. And these cities, of course, they come spontaneously if one reaches that level of experience. And then the question is what you do with it and whether you give them importance or not importance. And Patanjali is very critical, although he describes them at great length. But then he says, don't give importance to these powers because they will distract you from the path and they will not. Yeah, it's a great temptation. And so many of these yogis have fallen into that temptation of those cities. So we come to just one more sutra, if you're still able to take it. Sutra 21, because then with 22, that first section will be finished. Exactly, he says in introducing this sutra, he says, Yadatu mitasiti anapilashyan vishvatma pratam ichati tata asya. When, however, he does not desire simply limited powers, mitasiti, but wants to acquire the form of universal consciousness, vishvatma prata. So these limited powers, if you stop at them, then there are a blockage for your progress, for attaining that universal state. And if he does not stop at those limited powers, then Shuddha Vidyodayat Chakreshatva Siddhi. So this is the highest power, which is not a limited power, Metta Siddhi. Now, we had several expressions, for this kind of realization, enlightenment, and so on. See, one of the favorite expressions also in the Vijnana Bhairava is Udaya, just rising, arising, like the sun rises. And see, Vidyodaya. So we have Bodha also, we have other terms and so on. But Udaya, Savodaya, this arising, which always connected with light. So that has more to do with enlightenment than Bodha, means awakening. Udaya. Shuddha Vidyodayat Chakreshvata Siddhi. Then he attains the power, the extraordinary power, Siddhi, or perfection. Here I would rather translate it as perfection. The perfection of being the Chakreshvara. Chakreshvara, we had the sutra Shakti Chakra Sandhane. So the Shakti Chakra, which is the wheel of energies which is in our own body with our own senses, etc., and all the energies which are whether individual or universal energies, this is Shakti Chakra, and the Lord, the center of that wheel is Chakresha, the Lord of the wheel. And then that perfection which that yogi attains is to become the Lord of the wheel of energies. And how? By the arising of pure wisdom, Shuddha Vidyodayat. By the arising of pure wisdom, he attains the perfection of being the Lord of the wheel of energies. Now, this is clearly stating the aim of this whole, or the end point of this whole part of enlightenment, where when he leaves aside those limited powers, then he gets that unlimited perfection. Because if he is at the center of that wheel of energies, he has control of all these Shaktis. So he is the controller of all these energies. From his senses to the universal, all these Shaktis. So Shuddha Vidyodayat. Now Shuddha Vidya, you have the list of the tattvas, and yesterday when we talked about Maya, we also mentioned that there is that quantum leap from the impure path to the pure path, that is from Maya to Shuddha Vidya in terms of tattvas. From Maya as the deluding power, it's also the power of Shiva, to that pure power of the pure knowledge, pure wisdom, Shuddha Vidya. And from the moment you enter that stage of Shuddha Vidya, you are in the rising. You cannot go down. You are only rising up. That's where Swamiji sometimes said, then the rest becomes automatic. You don't have to struggle to get rid of your malas and of your kanchukas, and this is. Once you are, that Shuddha Vidya has arisen, you can only rise. You cannot lose that perfection. For this yogi, pure knowledge rises, and by that pure knowledge he becomes Chakreshvara, Lord of the universal wheel. When he, the yogi, unites his consciousness with Shakti through intensive awareness with a desire to gain universal consciousness, then through the appearance of Shuddha Vidya, he succeeds in acquiring the supreme power of Shiva in the form of complete mastery over his universal collective whole of Shaktis. And then he quotes Svachanda Tantra. Tasmad satu paravidya yasmad anya navidyate vindate hyatra yugapat sarvagnya adi gunan paran. Therefore, as there is no other vidya, a power of supreme knowledge like her, she is the highest vidya. In this, the yogi acquires the greatest qualities like omniscience, etc., all at once. It continues. She is designated Vidya because she brings about investigation of the beginningless characteristic of Shiva. Vedana anadi vardhati dharmasya paramatma tva bodhana. Yeah. And because she dispels all that is not the highest self, established in that, and this is the Unmana state, one can manifest the highest light, the highest cause. If one is established in that manifest highest light, he can attain the state of Shiva. Parasmin tejasi vyakte tatra sta shivatam vrachet. In that tejas, that brilliance. Now, Shivata is very important because what the yogi wants to attain, see, you can't compare it to the aim of the Buddhist, the Buddha nature. You're not aiming at the Buddha, but attaining the Buddha nature. And the same in Shaivism, you want to attain that Shivata, that state, or that divine nature, Shivata. It is a state, not Shiva as an individual god or anything like that, or not even Buddha as a person, as a realized, but the Buddha nature. So Shivata is very parallel to that Buddha nature. He will attain that, generally we can translate it, that divine state, that divine divinity. Then in the Spandakarika, Didrikshayet sarvartani adya vyapya avatishtate tata kim bahuna uktena swayam eva avabhoksyate. When the yogi, desirous of seeing, stands fixed in concentration, covering all objects with the light of his consciousness, then what is the use of talking much? He will have that experience for himself. Not only he will have, you will have. Means the one who reads this text, then what more can be said? You will have that experience yourself. What is... Swamiji says, when he pervades the whole universe, including his individual being, then what is to be explained or spoken? He understands this state by himself. Now, I would say, what more is to be said? Swayam eva avabhutsati. Swayam means anyone can understand it by him or herself. once you touch that experience, then there's not much more to be said. So this is many times, when they reach a certain level, then they say, what more can we say? Just experience it. Or you go to a Sadguru and you ask him, but I cannot say more. The text just ends here. You cannot say more in words. You have to go to experience it. So we have only one sutra left for this afternoon, which again brings us back to that great lake. Ajay, would you like to announce the program today and tomorrow?